When I share my story, it's about more than building an inspirational space for artists. I represent the creative spirit of the nation, the Choctaw Nation.
I am our past.
I am our present.
I am our future.
I am all of us. When we share, we become one.
Because our stories make us more.
Stories keep our culture alive.
See them and share them at togetherwe'remore.com.
People don't know what it is to be champions. Oklahoma invented it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Through the Keyhole. It's an Oklahoma football podcast, and boy, do we've got Oklahoma football stuff to talk about because, I don't know. Did anything happen since Jade Knott got signed? I do not know because I wasn't on my phone over the weekend because I was enjoying the weather as we got flooded here in Oklahoma. Just kidding. I know what happened. Anyway, we're going to talk about it because holy crap, so much happened from Friday evening of last week until Easter. So we will do our best to make you abreast of the situation, but I'm sure you already know. But for those who are not, we are here to help and inform you. I'm Brady Trantham alongside my dog crying outside the door because she wants to desperately be on the podcast. But my two hosts, because our fourth host is busy covering the Oklahoma City Thunder as they thoroughly dismantle the Memphis Grizzlies, maybe for game 2, but they did for game 1. But Payton Guthrie is here. Payton, how art thou?
I'm doing well. Running around quite a lot here at the Choctaw Nation, filming a bunch of people. Got done filming today with Donnie Gay down in Terrell, Texas. The record holder, 8-time bull riding national champion for the NFR. Pretty cool dude overall. If you like rodeo stuff, pretty cool guy.
That's awesome. As a, little sidebar, speaking of the Choctaw Nation, I went and saw Sinners last night. Had no idea that I would see. I mean, I don't really want to spoil much, but there are Choctaw.
Keep it under your hat, whatever it is. I haven't seen it yet.
but there are this isn't really a spoiler, but just to show you how surprising it is, there are Choctaw vampire hunters in this movie. Did not know that was ever.
Whoa, hold on, it's about vampires.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell from the commercial?
I thought it. Wait. Oh no! I thought it was a Easter thing. I'm sorry.
Oh no! It is most certainly not an Easter film or an Easter message of any kind. But
right.
Yeah, that was a little interesting and made me want to Google some stuff. But yeah, Peyton's always out doing a lot of fun stuff. Alan, speaking of, it's Alan Kinney. How art thou?
Oh man, I'm living. Just got back from spring break, so good times.
Guys. We talked for, all of 32 seconds before we hit record of this entire story being David Stone. I guess, first of all, if you have not done so, go check out keyholepod.com right now. It's the free site. Go check out Alan's thoughts. He focused primarily on the greatness that was Jaden Jackson's freshman season compared to the player that we will be talking about, who I know he's not technically a fourth string defensive tackle, but in terms of the pecking order, he's the fourth guy as it stands right now. So go check out Alan's post. We'll reference it here and there, but go get some of your own context, your own takeaways. Keyholepod.com. And then for the Tuesday post today on patreon.com/throughthekeyhole, I focused, as I typically try to do, I focus primarily on who's in charge and how should we feel about it moving forward. So all that and more as we unravel the David Stone saga. But for those who were offline completely and are just tuning into Through the Keyhole, because this is your only source of Oklahoma football content, in which case we greatly thank you and appreciate you. David Stone at 6:30, 7:30 Central Time in the evening Friday hit the portal. And social media just lost their minds. And I'm not dogging them because it was shocking. It was surprising that a player like David Stone, former 5-star defensive tackle, originally from Oklahoma City, went to IMG Academy in Florida, signed with OU, ballyhooed recruit, first 5-star defensive tackle that OU has signed since Gerald McCoy. Overall, I think Jamarcus McFarland might have been a random 5-star defensive tackle in the early 2010s.
Certainly not a consensus. Though.
Yeah, he wasn't a consensus one. But obviously, as we all remember from a few years ago, David Stone's recruitment was very important for not just Brent Venables, but for OU to get its footing back on the defensive front, to prove that they can get that caliber of player, and they did. And David Stone, let's just take Jaden Jackson out of the equation here. David Stone had a true freshman season as a 5-star defensive tackle that really should not have shocked anybody, especially if you listen to this podcast going all the way back to the spring game last year when Payton had his thoughts about David Stone physically. Everybody's own opinions about, is David Stone going to get up to 300 pounds, blah, blah, blah. Is he going to be ready for the SEC? He wasn't, but that wasn't necessarily a black mark against his ability to be good at some point. Not every great defensive tackle is Tommy Harris out of high school immediately. So that's the main lesson to take away. But we're still all very excited about David Stone, and then he just hits the portal. And you hear rumors and reports, quote unquote, about NIL negotiation or pay cuts from Jim Nagy, incentive based because the production wasn't there for David Stone as a true freshman compared to Jaden Jackson, for instance, who probably OU had to find a bunch of money laying around in order to retain Jaden Jackson. They were able to do that. And guys, as the evening got longer and longer, and we got closer to Saturday morning, the longer it kind of lasted, and Payton, I'll bring you in first with this. The longer it kind of lasted into Saturday, it just seemed like, whether it was people we were talking to that we trust with information or just kind of the general overall vibe, maybe you felt differently. It just seemed like the closer we got to Saturday morning into the afternoon that day, it was like, I think he's probably going to come back because of behind the scenes sorcery, as we could only describe it because we weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, we only know so much, and we're only going to say so much because everything's like rumor and conjecture at this point in time. Even from the people who are on the insiders, it's a bunch of conflicting information either side. You know, you don't want to embarrass yourself, kind of like how some of the other accounts, more fan-driven accounts, obviously, were on Friday throughout the weekend. Usually, when something like this happens, when a big-time player, a big-time recruit, at least, that's still very young in their career, so you have that potential. It's not proven yet, but hey, potential. He's a 5-star player. If he develops, there's still a value to that side of it. It's kind of like a first-round draft pick in the NFL or something. It's like there's just value to there at that point in time because there's a reason why he was scouted that way. Usually, if a player like that jumps into the portal, it's almost always they have an offer in hand, from another place. That you're not just testing the waters to test the waters. At that point in time, something has been lined up. Nico, obviously Tennessee, that's a different situation. Didn't have anything land on his side, and it did seem like NCAA, at least the college football coaches, kind of took a stand against him to a certain degree, not matching that $4 million. Him, reportedly coming in at UCLA under that number. So when he didn't immediately. When there wasn't like a bunch of stuff saying, we expect this person to be a big time player, we expect this person to be a big time player, it was more like a shock factor. There was kind of a hope on that side of it. Now, the issues that I have with it overall is not that he went into the portal, go read your favorite message board if you want to kind of figure out the David Stone lore. It's more of potential why Oklahoma even got to this problem in the quote unquote problem in the first place, where we have David Stone, the football player, statistically of where he was in his freshman year. And I think a lot of people are getting caught up on that. And they're saying, okay, he was given a pay cut, a quote unquote pay cut. And then his new salary contract, for lack of a better term, was set up upon potential production for this coming year in which he could, based on incentives, hit certain platitudes or whatever to get paid. To get paid. You would never restructure somebody, especially in that type of position, whether it takes some time immediately just based off of production, right? I don't think anyone is looking at a 5-star defensive tackle year one and saying, we didn't get 5 sacks, so we're going to cut your salary in half. I think it's more you're looking at long-term development, potential. You're looking at physical development, physical maturation, and you're also looking at emotional maturity. And that's the reason why you'd make that decision, so early on at that point in time. And you do it as a way to drive, motivate a player to drive a player. Because if it truly was incentives-based, then the cap of earning was still there. He just had to go out and go get that money. And that might be a way to kind of like light a fire under David Stone, reportedly at that point in time. So if we assume all that to be true, a lot of assumptions happening. If we assume all that to be true, you can see Oklahoma is trying to use the NIL, salary, way they're walking through this environment as a way to motivate their players. Paid players sometimes don't play as hard, right? You've already got the bag, and you're trying to motivate these guys and trying to keep them moving and keep them performing in a way that you need them to kind of match that untapped potential. We are seeing that this may be a way that college football is moving just in general. We'll talk about more, Arkansas talking about trying to claw back some payments, Nico not making the $4 million deal, David Stone having his thing restructured to more of a production-based deal at that point in time. Are college football programs finally getting in front of this and realizing they have a little more power in this NIL system than they maybe initially, or at least fans initially believed when all this went down? That's to me where I'm a little more interested overall than just the individualized third down pass rush defensive tackle that we have in David Stone.
Yeah, and I mean that's always going to be the interesting thing, because we can unpack this story all we want, but it's always going to result in, the good news. David Stone is still in Oklahoma City. We are all happy about that. We're all very excited about David Stone, but it's eventually going to, lead down the path to David Stone's ability as a player today and projecting to game 1 of 2025 and what kind of expectations we have for him under the microscope of, dude, I don't know how we're supposed to feel about that as fans, understanding very much so that everybody has a different situation about them. Again, we're not going to talk about the reports about how influential his parents were. I mean, Allen, Payton, if you want to, go right ahead. I'm not going to, because like I said on the Tuesday post on Patreon, I'm not in his family. I am not David Stone, and I am not the coaches. And unless they share that information with us, I don't really feel comfortable talking about it. It's their situation until they share it with us. So at the same time, though, all we know about them is their football playing exploits, them as football players, and their relationship and I guess their importance to the team. David Stone is not the most important player on the team, but he is integral to OU continuing its defensive climb if he does take a little bit of a leap into his sophomore year. So we're all very excited about him. But now, when a player does something like this, it does kind of make everybody go into I guess, a mode of, I hate rooting for this sport now. I don't know who's going to be on my favorite team next year to year, semester to semester. It's very hard to keep up with, and it's hard to invest any hope and belief and optimism and passion when you have no idea who's going to be on your team, let alone a player who had David Stone's caliber coming out of high school. But we'll get to all that, of course. But Allen, I guess a specific question I wanted to throw to you is, before we got into our group chat, our separate group chats with all of our friends and all of our family, just kind of talking about what this means, why is this happening? Is David Stone really that big of a loss? I mean, I was throwing out scenarios where, let's say he chose Miami out of high school because they were his second choice, did the exact same thing he did at OU, which was jack shit, and then he entered the portal and came to OU. Would we be like, oh my God, this is like a ground-shaking transfer coming into OU? Or would we be like, no, this is cool. Like, we wish he would have came here last year, but he didn't really do that much at Miami, so he's still kind of a developmental piece. But, better to have him than not, which is the result. But before we got into all those group chats, Alan, why did it seem like this story was so odd? Even in the wake of the Nico situation at Tennessee, I just had this feeling like I feel like this is going to have a happy ending. And I had no reason to believe that because it's the era of players can just leave willy-nilly.
Are you ready for the new era of sports in Oklahoma? Want to be ready for some real Southern football? Kaizen Performance in Norman, Oklahoma is your spot for physical and mental growth. By empowering a lifestyle of constant, continuous improvement, Kaizen Performance's gym experience lends itself from the experienced training fanatics to those who want to make a positive change in their lives and everyone in between. Come see their new location at 158 Armstrong Court in Norman, Oklahoma. With experienced trainers who understand that every client has individual desires and needs, in-person and online customized training programs and nutrition plans, Kaizen Performance has everything to offer for you to meet your goals. Again, their new location is 158 Armstrong Court, Norman, Oklahoma, 73071. Seriously, Brady works out there, and so does Payton when he comes to home games. Come work out with us and get ready for the week-to-week grind of real Southern football. Kaizen Performance, Norman's own local gym where your goals are a workout away.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I was pretty up in the air. I mean, I guess when I started reading that he was, there was talks of him coming back, it didn't really shock me because I kind of thought, well, if he was going to leave, he would have already done that. Like, what changed? What would have changed from whenever, I guess it was early January when he agreed to the NIL deal that he's playing under versus, after spring? Was he just that good in spring that he felt like he had gained some leverage? That part of it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And so, I mean, if there were external factors outside of David Stone himself that, led to the decision, that would make sense, right? But this reminds me somewhat of there was a player from LSU that went into the transfer portal last year named Lance Hurd. He was a offensive tackle. 5-star, recruit who went to LSU and was stuck, playing behind another, group of highly talented offensive linemen and, was looking to get out and go somewhere where we could play tackle. He was commanding a pretty big number in the open market from what I understand, and everybody was saying, oh, you should be in on this. Well, the problem with that, and I get it, is like, nothing about Hurd as a prospect changed from the time he was in high school to the time he was, finishing up the year. I mean, he played a minimal number of snaps. What was it that made him all of a sudden such an imperative? And you could argue, okay, well, OU had a real need at offensive tackle. I mean, fine, but again, why weren't you just breaking the bank, for this guy earlier? That's how I would have felt if OU was bringing David Stone in from outside, from somewhere else. I mean, it's kind of like like a Bear Alexander type situation, right? I mean, why is he leaving Georgia all of a sudden to go, after not really doing anything there, I mean, why would he be leaving that kind of program to go to a place like USC? Or now he's back in the portal. It's just that part of it didn't make a lot of sense to me. So, I don't know if that really answers your question, but no, I mean, I would look at this a lot like OU is right now, real honestly, with Marvin Jones Jr. Like, for him, it's time to make good on this. Like, yeah, okay, he was a 5-star. He was a 5-star. I mean, he has not been a 5-star caliber player in college yet. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, and like the argument that a few of my friends had when throwing their opinions at me when I was kind of the opinion, even though I said that I had this feeling that it was going to have a happy ending. I wasn't, I mean, you guys know, I wasn't sitting here telling you guys, oh, he's staying. Like, I'm not worried. Like, I was just fully on board of like, see ya. Because if we lose Jaden Jackson, I might lose my mind. If we lose David Stone, it's like, I would like to have him, but until he proves otherwise, it's just a dude with a name that we all know. And he's from Oklahoma. So we have like an emotional tie to him, and we probably want him to do better, a little bit more than like, say, a guy from Texas or what have you. But overall, it's like all I care about is 2025, and David Stone could help, but he's not in the plans as it stands right now. But a lot of the arguments thrown at me from friends, family, or just the simple kind of blue chip ratio argument of you need to stack talent. You need to stack players like David Stone on your roster. Nick Saban would sometimes cut a 4 or a 5-star if they were 2 or 3 years deep into the program and not playing at the amount or the level that was previously planned, because he's stacking other guys. He's recruiting right behind them. And it gets to a point where we don't have room for you anymore. You need to go somewhere else. OU is not there yet. So a player like David Stone, who nobody is like calling him a bust. I don't think anyone has called him a bust. This podcast hasn't. Payton, you're squinting. You've not called him a bust. You've been critical of him. You've been like, I'm tempering my expectations to an extent, but I don't think you've ever outright said this guy is never going to do anything. I think we're all very hopeful, at the very least, of David Stone's potential for the Oklahoma Sooners. But because OU's not in a place like Nick Saban, Alabama, and David Stone kind of falls under that category, you want to keep him and you want to retain him and you want him to, at the very least, be a good teammate, a good team culture guy to help bring on the next high-end 4-star defensive tackle or even a 5-star defensive tackle, so that you get lucky, you get a little bit more luck on the next one. But again, David Stone's story is still not over. It's still being written as an Oklahoma Sooner. But I mean, where do you guys want to go? Like, because obviously I always want to talk about what does this mean for Brent? What does this mean for Jim Nagy? Like, who is like the influential voice here? What should we expect as OU fans? Because this is going to happen again, not necessarily a player entering the portal and then coming back, but players are going to be told where they stand from an NIL perspective, from a financial perspective, after summer workouts, after fall camp, during the season, exit interviews. So this will always happen. And I try to like take, okay, this happened, this big event happened, and that's how I'm going to base my understanding of how things will go in the future. Jim Nagy had a very black and white understanding of how something like this cannot happen at OU when he's talking about Nico at Tennessee. This cannot happen at OU. This was not the same thing, but it's pretty damn similar. And it did happen at OU, and the player came back. So now I just don't know what to think. But do you guys want to talk about David Stone, the player, and the microscope he's going to be under going into 2025, or do you want to go straight to Brent Venables and Nagy?
I mean, for me, they're both. I mean, I think they're both. I think I want to talk first of all about the processes and Venables and Nagy. I think because
please,
you mentioned it. What Nagy said about the Tennessee Nico situation, and the thing of it is that like. I get what Nagy meant there. The funny part is, to me, like, I have nothing that makes me think in this case that OU did something necessarily wrong to drive Stone away or to, anything. I mean, you can say, okay, well, they cut his pay, and I understand, but that was also an agreement that Stone came to with OU. I agree. If you're willing to, kind of restructure someone's contract that way, this is, I'm talking about back in January, you are, especially a 5-star recruit, you are tempting fate, that someone will come along with a better offer or something along those lines. But again, I mean, Stone signed up, to go through this. So again, I don't see like where OU necessarily made a mistake there. Without knowing also what it took to bring Stone back into the fold, I'm also kind of like, I don't know,
I do want to butt in real quick, because we've already established we're not going to really talk about the insider reporting here for a multitude of reasons. I do want to mention, because I see this Twitter Discord between fans or comment sections on like YouTube videos talking about David Stone from fans. This is a fan podcast, so I do feel like we can bring those up just as talking points. But what I kind of gathered from the fans' perspective in these random spaces is that when you say OU did no wrong, there might be some fans listening that will hear that and say, no, OU tried to screw David Stone and by like cutting his NIL pay. And then Brent Venables kind of like rushed to like, oh, no, Jim Nagy, no. We need to like keep him, blah, 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 blah. And Jim Nagy's like, I don't care. This is like what I want to do. And then Brent Venables is like, I will find money. He found some money, or like discussions were had. So again, we don't want to do the insider thing, but this is just from fans that potentially could be listening to you say that and be confused. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. And to clarify that, I mean, very, very quickly, that initial deal, from what we understand, was from Brent. And
correct.
Nagy was not on the team at that point in time. So in my perspective, and Alan, I'll jump back to you, is that the only mistake OU made was you made a decision with the young man. He agreed to it. Then the moment Nagy was hired, who now is the guy who's in charge of the NIL deals, he tried to renegotiate, or somebody in his camp tried to renegotiate.
And by he in this case, you mean David Stone tried to renegotiate.
Or David Stone's representatives tried to.
Yes.
The moment that happens, that sets, if I'm running a program, that sets up a giant red flag of saying, you and I had a deal. Why are you going and talking to this guy now? You know, that, to me personally, I think that sets an interesting thing of saying, well, who's running this ship? All of a sudden that this question didn't really exist until now this decision's been made.
Right. But again, that's a red flag about Stone's camp, I think, is what I
seemed very, it seemed very, let's take advantage of the substitute teacher. Like Jim Nagy just got here, so he doesn't know the lay of the land, like up and down. So let's maybe if we can see if we can like, hey, can we get a few more thousand? Yeah, like we need, like we're still kind of in limbo. Like again, I don't know, but that's what it sounds like to me. But I mean, it's interesting you brought up red flags, Alan, because that was another bit on Nagy's quote about the Nico situation at Tennessee, where there are red flags that you see in recruiting or just vibing with the player in the locker room if they do come on campus of like, if we don't have to cross that bridge at some point, then cool. If we do, then we need to immediately cut bait because we do not negotiate with terrorists, essentially, is what I got from Jim Nagy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite, I mean, that's the mindset I always try to apply. Like, are you being, taken advantage of? Is this a kind of, blow it up type thing? And that's, again, that's my only concern here because, you don't get a second bite at the apple when it comes to this kind of thing, unless, like I said, something happened in spring practice again that everybody all of a sudden is like, oh my God, David Stone's the second coming of, Gerald McCoy. And for all the positive talk about Stone that I heard coming out of camp, nothing like that. I mean, he's still a rotational defensive tackle. So, the idea that suddenly he deserves another shot at negotiating, or you should be renegotiating this, like, no. So that's my big concern here. But again, since we don't know exactly what it was, it could just be a matter of like Stone just needed to be sure that he was making the right call staying. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's the part. And again, I think if they're kind of to back up just a second, I guess if you're going to say that there's any maybe fault on whose part here, it is kind of the you recruit your own problems type thing, right? Where, this is just a lot of drama. I mean, look at it. Like we're here, we're however many minutes in this podcast still talking about this one player who essentially never left the team, right? I mean, it's a lot going on, Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there's just it's a lot to. It's just a lot of mess. And, you don't want that. You don't like the sound of that, right?
Yeah. And the other side of it that we kind of talked about was like how do we feel how this was handled, right? From that side of it, and looking from a Brent perspective versus a Nagy perspective of how do you build this roster? How do you move forward, right? On this side of it, since Nagy's come in, we've seen Oklahoma spend quite a lot of money on offense. And, if you kind of look at the analytics of everything, how sports are moving forward, probably the easiest way to win is score more points than the other team, right? It's like you're putting a lot of value on scoring points, and you can figure out how to figure out. You're hoping Brent is smart enough to figure out how to get some stops, on that side of it. That maybe defense isn't something. Maybe the ROI isn't as easily as seen as tossing a ton of money at defense, as opposed to throwing money at wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks. Because they have those are premier positions that obviously have an immediate impact on your team. Defense isn't from that side. The stuff that I want to talk about a little bit. It's not necessarily on the show notes, but it's in that same vein. Brady, you talked about how people were kind of like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I can watch this anymore. I said, David, he was a former 5-star player, right? As Alan said, the moment he signed and walked on the Norman, he's no longer a 5-star player. He's a freshman player who has to play and has to perform at that point in time. We can't sit there and say, he's a 5-star, you have to pay him $1 million. It's like, if he performs as if he were a 5-star, yes, for sure. But until then, he's there, and you're paying for potential, and I understand all that concept. But you're looking at a 105-player roster that's being turned over 25% every single year before NIL, right? This is already happening. The NFL changes 30 to 40% of their roster every single year. Each team is having to turn over about that much, more than what's happening in college football. College football is getting to the point to where it's looking more like an NFL thing. But this isn't unrecognizable in any way, shape, or form. People are like, oh, I like seeing them do all the stuff and everything. The average NFL player's contract is about 3.5 years, which is about how long they're in college if they make it to the NFL. It's like the exact same timeline. It really does weird me out when everyone's kind of like, you don't get to see the same players anymore. And college, this isn't like college basketball where dudes were hanging out for 5 years.
Well, that's why people
what it was anymore.
But that's exactly why college basketball has become unpopular in the last 20, 25 years since the one and done rule.
Yeah, I guess.
Like college fans are accustomed to players coming and going, like especially OU fans. Like we know that we get Adrian Peterson for probably 3 seasons when he steps on campus and shows that he's a badass. We know that freshman, sophomore, junior season, and you wave goodbye and hope he has a great NFL career, and he did. But year to year for underclassmen is where people kind of lose their minds, because you expect David Stone, even in the NIL transfer portal era, but especially before, David Stone is on campus for 3 years. If he wants to transfer, obviously before the transfer portal, that's a decision he'll probably make when he graduates so he can be a grad transfer. After the transfer portal and during the NIL era, a player of David Stone's caliber, and I say caliber because of that hype you mentioned, even though that you're right, as soon as he steps onto campus, he's no longer a high school player. He is a true freshman with a blank slate. But you expect a player of that magnitude to stay in the program for, 2-3 years before transfer portal stuff happens, especially if there's no trouble. If there's no trouble with the law, if there's no trouble with the team, and by all accounts, David Stone is a awesome person, good teammate. Everybody likes him. The roster essentially tweeted out broken heart emojis when the announcement went down on Friday night. So the entire team was shocked and wanted him to stay. But I get it. I get that a place like OU, especially, I feel like OU fans, and I would say this about Bama fans and insert blue blood school fans here, probably the most ill-equipped for this. It's going to take us, all us blue blood fans, probably a lot longer to get used to that this can happen. That if you have a player for a year, don't just expect blindly that they will be here next year, if that makes sense.
Well, it's also the first time. Yes, you're right. It's don't expect it. Don't expect a player to be there next year on the player's own volition. And plenty of times, it's don't expect a player to be here next year because he's going to be cut. Teams like Alabama, teams like Oklahoma, Texas, Ohio State, like I talked about, you're replacing 25 to 30% of your of your roster. You have to make room, and these guys. I know there's a big thing. I was getting into some fun debates about David Stone. It's like, well, potential this, potential that, potential this, and it's like these guys know if they're good or not, and they know if they're good or not pretty soon, right? Like CeeDee Lamb walked onto the field and everyone's like, okay, that's an NFL wide receiver. Now it's just how good, at that point in time. And you look at David Stone, you see him where he is right now, and you're thinking, okay, he's a good piece for this team. And it's not he's getting day one raving. Like if he plays this way, he's going to work himself into, first round NFL draft pick in 2 years or something like that. I mean, that's not what we're hearing. We're hearing, he's going to be a productive defensive tackle for Oklahoma. That's not a bar a 5-star player should be hitting. He's already above that by the time he walks onto the field, unless it's a position that's like completely, it's a quarterback and it's already a couple of years where he's going to play. Like Oklahoma doesn't have the depth at defensive tackle to be like, yeah, we're going to get a guy, we're going to stash him. It's not like an NFL where they draft like a first-round guard and he sucks, but he's able to be hidden for a while, so it doesn't look as bad. But the issue is that it's recruiting, and recruiting is based on, I guess, vibes, right?
Vibes,
the players
optics,
have to pick you, so you can't cut 5-star players. You can't let them walk away. So his value to the team isn't necessarily what he produces. It's more of my team was able to go get a 5-star player. And that has a lot of return, when it comes to recruiting other players, these other agents and stuff like that, saying, hey, my other football coaches, it's like you can't piss off the Texas high school coaches and stuff like that, or else you're going to be like, stonewalled out of their programs and stuff like that. When Oklahoma pulled offers from the wide receivers, those California wide receivers, the Texas blogger guy, I can't remember his name, was talking like, modern day will never let Oklahoma get another recruit from them or something like that because of this unprofessional. It's like, you do have to balance those relationships and how to do all that stuff. So keeping Stone, in my personal opinion, is probably a bigger culture play for the locker room, a locker room which Brent cannot lose, on a make or break season for him. And so the premium was probably worth dealing with. The pain was probably worth dealing with, just because he's thinking more short term than what Nagy was. And from my understanding, Nagy was cool with him. I mean, was there? I don't know. There's only so much we can say because we don't know everything. But it was like, if you can get him to stay, that's great. If he leaves, we'll find somebody else. And it wasn't going to be that. To me, it wasn't going to be earth shattering as much as Oklahoma fans think of, because one player has the words 5-star next to it, as opposed to a 3-star player from Syracuse or something.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting as we get into the season. I mean, people are going to really, really, really pay attention to David Stone. I mean, who knows if people remember this story, because game one is a long, long time from now. But no doubt it will be on some people's minds. It'll be on some fans' minds, and they will be watching like a hawk how many times he plays, or what impact does he bring when he's on the field. Is he getting on the field twice as much as he was last year? Fair or unfair, but I would say that it's fair, because if players want to leverage themselves and leverage their name, image, and likeness to get more money, which all power to them, they can do that. It comes with, consequences, and they're not always negative. Sometimes the consequence is just making a lot of money. Do you have something, Alan?
Yeah, well, let's hold on here a second, back up. Stone did OU a solid, didn't he, by taking a pay cut to help pay for guys like Jaden Jackson, to help pay for R. Mason Thomas? We can certainly quibble with how he went about this part of whatever the negotiation was, or trying to get a second shot at it. But at the same time, Stone probably could have jumped into the portal and gotten a bigger deal somewhere else and not had to take a pay cut. So, I get that there'll be more scrutiny on him because of this, but in my mind, that's almost unfair. It feels like OU's getting the proper value for a developmental player, out of this whole thing, assuming that, there's no new money added to this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, from a financial standpoint, the spreadsheet works because, in some part because of David Stone's willingness to take that pay cut and be more on an incentive-based basis. But, the drama you talked about.
Right.
It was unnecessary. And, again, it's kind of similar to the Devon Mitchell thing where I hated criticizing the kid because he was a kid. And so were we when we were 17 years old and 18 years old. He didn't do anything incorrect, didn't do anything, didn't break the law, didn't do anything like that. He was just a kid. But when we're talking about OU football, which is, one of the most important things in all of our lives, it's probably the most important thing for some of our lives. It's some serious business. And, earlier when you mentioned how Jim Nagy's talking about red flags and recruiting Brent Venables has said in the past about recruiting your own problems. Again, I hate bringing it up, but this has kind of been a thing with David Stone going back to his high school days in the recruiting process is he likes attention, not in an ugly way, but he likes to have fun with it. He had been crystal balled to OU at the 11th hour by basically everybody. And then what does David Stone do in his next high school game is he gets a sack and then he finds the photographer at the game and throws up the U with his hands. Because, am I going to go to OU or am I going to Miami? It's stuff like that. He likes to have fun with it. Scoop, I remember back then they would talk about how David kind of likes the limelight. And then also his family was in a situation where they were going to heavily invest in David Stone. I try not to think of that in a gross way because that's their situation and everybody has their own life that they have to deal with. And unfortunately, sometimes the reality is your best ticket out of poverty is the football playing exploits of your young son. And hopefully everything is as healthy as it can be with that situation, if that's indeed the case. But this has been going on, this was in the air with David. So when it was David Stone, it was just kind of of course, and especially in the wake of Jaden Ott, because how many did you guys not feel man, everything's going great right now? If you're an Oklahoma fan, oh yeah, something fucking bad's got to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's annoying, but I guess switching slightly gears into Jim Nagy, Brent Venables, or I guess let's go with Brent, because like we had already mentioned, Jaden Jackson, a handful of other players posted their sentiments about David Stone hitting the portal, being sad about it, being upset about it. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, guys, and I probably am, but this now is 2 times where the players seem to be making the decision that Brent Venables, the head coach, should be making. And maybe this was going to be his decision all along in order, go all out to try to keep David, go have a come to Jesus talk with him as soon as possible to rectify things. Maybe that's what would have happened anyway, regardless of the players. But the things that we were told about Devon Mitchell was it was basically, it came from a team vote. We want Devon's just he's not up to snuff and he needs to go. And that's what happened. And now the player's no, we want David Stone, please, David, don't leave. And then this Brent Venables just rushes to fix it. And I can't remember what it was, Payton or Allen, who it was who said it, but Brent cannot lose the roster. And this is such an important season, not just for Brent, not just for Ben Arbuckle, not just for whomever, but for OU. This is an important season for OU. If it goes south, Joe Castiglione might retire. We could see some potential huge change. This would be the time for it to happen because you probably have to wave goodbye to Brent Venables and then other questions will arise because they've been bubbling to the surface for the last handful of years. So, Alan, with Brent, it's, I want to know who's in charge here. The players, Brent Venables, individual players like David Stone who have that caliber, or Jim Nagy, what direction who should I follow going into 2025? I'm very frustrated about this question.
Well, like Brent's not the one that put David Stone into the portal. You know what I mean? So like, again, I mean, the players coming or, wanting David Stone back. I mean, first of all, I don't care about that personally. I mean, that doesn't make me feel one way or another about this. But the players wanting him back, I mean, again, you kind of mentioned it. Like, that doesn't mean that Brent wouldn't have done this no matter what. If anything, though, it's one of those things where it's like, if Stone hadn't created this drama, then we don't have to do this whole like who's minding the store thing, right? But that aside, I mean, I really don't know who to tell you who to follow here. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard because Jim Nagy's essentially now kind of in charge of overseeing the personnel that he's inheriting, right? But he's supposed to be doing that as a personnel guy. So, I mean, again, and the amount of flexibility. And on top of that, like, you can't really tell. I mean, it's hard to tell a coach, you have to take this guy when it's a matter of recruiting them as opposed to signing them off the professional, off the, waiver wire, what have you. So I don't know. It's just a weird time in college football in general, right?
Yeah. I mean, Payton, do you have thoughts on this at all in terms of, I mean, I know I'm the one who always thinks about like the hold the leadership to the coals as much as possible, unless we get the success we want. That is the standard. But am I thinking too hard about this? Am I looking for something to get pissed off at because I've already made up my mind about Brent Venables, even though I have about 20-30% chance hope that remaining that he can still be the guy, to be fair?
No, I mean, I think it's right to question it, or at least it's fair to question this, right? Of who actually is the one leading this ship, right? Who's the one at the wheel? And it's getting, because of this situation, how it was developed. Now, I honestly think it does leave that question. I mean, if I were a student writer for the OU Daily or something, I'd probably ask that question. The next person, like, hey, who's making these decisions? Can we get clarification on that? These structures are nebulous. I mean, or whatever I'm trying to say, malleable at that point in time. We know when the Andrew Luck stuff happened, we're like, oh, this is a massive sea change, right? In college football, it's like, well, he was a former player there. All that, he had a lot of different stuff that went into that maybe gave him more political willpower or cachet at Stanford than Nagy does at Oklahoma at this point in time. But how much powder does this Brent Venable have, and how dry is it at this point in time? Like, was that the last move he had? For that side to be able to pull something like that, to go scrounge up whatever had to be scrounged up, to save this thing. Other than, Oklahoma had a bunch of defensive tackles scheduled to come in on Monday, right? Like, it did seem like they were very much so ready to say, okay, we got the next guys coming in. But Brent stuck for David Stone and kept him around and wanted to be able to say he kept him. So from that side of it, it is interesting to see how those two are, I don't know, gelling, I guess, from that side of it. Like, when you're looking at the roster, are they both evaluating the talent at the same level, from that side of it?
There's a certain, at this point too, Nagy coming at this point in the process, there's going to be a question about how much objectivity do Brent and his coaches have for these players that they identified and they recruited versus Jim Nagy looking at with fresh eyes, right? Like, that's an interesting question that we don't have many answers publicly about if there's a disparity there or not.
Yeah, I mean, Brent and team had to fight really hard to get Stone's commitment, and now you have a GM going in there saying, well, this dude sucks, or whatever. From that, maybe not.
I mean, we don't know.
Right?
We don't know, but it's certainly possible that Nagy had that opinion. Right? right?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah,
or
just
whatever.
let him walk. Who cares? From that side of it. It's like, we can replace a fourth defensive tackle. Like, I guarantee you, we can, he's something of that nature.
He plays at Southeast Missouri or something like that.
Yeah. The other Stone who went somewhere else. But it is interesting from that side of it, of trying to figure out, it's not only just who's making decisions now, but how's Oklahoma going to work on roster construction in the long term? Like, to me, that's something kind of interesting. I've got an idea of like writing this article, and I've already done some spreadsheets and stuff in the portal open. It kind of blew that out of the water, so I have to redo everything. But like, how often are these teams in the portal versus how much are they relying on recruiting? Now, Oklahoma and Brent have been on the back foot, but when you compare Oklahoma to Alabama, Georgia, Texas, beyond obviously the caveat for Alabama, which they'd lost the Hall of Fame head coach, and they had 40 outgoing transfers, which is 40 people transferred out of their program. It's a lot. They're pulling in like 5 to 7 players a year. Oklahoma's pulling in 15 plus every single year under Brent, and it's just and that's not even counting what this number is going to be this year, which is probably going to be closer to 20. I don't think that's sustainable long term.
And it's like and they can't get it's like they can't get off this cycle. And like that's part of it too. It's just like it's so hard to get off of it at this point.
And the idea was, Brent Venables has been a very good recruiter. He's been an awesome recruiter. And the first 3 classes, it was trending in a direction that we have never seen this type of recruiting consistently back to back to back at OU before. I mean, there were no recruiting rankings during the Switzer days, but that's probably it, is the Switzer era in terms of just stacking class after class after class of great potential, like future college football Hall of Fame players. And that's kind of been the reason why that he's stuck in this cycle, guys, is the recruiting has looked good on paper, but once they've gotten here, it's not really been that much to write home about. I mean, the 2023 class, was that the Jackson Arnold one?
Mm-hmm.
That is bus city all over the place. We are praying. We know where we are with David Stone. Like, we know that, he's going to play more than 100 snaps. And I mean, Alan, you put it on Keyhole Pod. How many snaps did DJ Terry play last year? He was the third
315.
most.
He was he was fourth. It went Williams, Halton, Jackson, Terry, and then Stone. And there was a significant gap between Terry and Stone. Yeah,
about over 200 snaps. Yeah. So if David Stone makes, I guess, a normal leap, and that's even unfair because DJ Terry was a 4th or 5th year player. Mm-hmm. But let's just be fair and say he plays anywhere from 150 to 200 snaps. That would be like, okay, not a jag. He's the 4th guy in the rotation. In those almost 100 more plays than he played the previous year, he's probably making a handful of plays that we can remember. So that would be a good 4th defensive tackle. But of course, we are hoping for much, much more. We know where we are with David Stone. PJ Adebawore, we are just hoping for something. And he was, next to Jackson Arnold, the like guy that everyone pointed to for that class. So you go back to some of these the classes under Brent, and it's been a whole bunch of, especially on offense. And West of Everest has asked this question on their last few episodes of who is the best offensive recruited out of high school player under Brent Venables. And I think they said, I can't even remember because in my mind I was answering Xavier Robinson. It's probably an offensive lineman, and I just can't remember who was a holdover, who was recruited out of high school. I mean, Sexton was recruited out of high school, Hito Zaida. But I mean, even those, I think Sexton was a 3-star or a 4-star. He was at the bottom of the recruiting class.
Sexton was a 4-star. Yeah.
Okay. You get out of the portal cycle of bringing in north of 10, around 15 players, like you said, Payton, because you just recruit well and develop well, and that has not happened. And it's not been the case of, well, OU recruits really good players. They just want more NIL money. They go chase the bag in the portal. No, OU's not lost anybody that I can think of. I mean, if Bauer Sharp has a really good season, that might be the first one, right? That it's like,
and I think he potentially will have a good season because he won't be relied upon to be like your number one offensive playmaker
or or blocker of any kind.
I do want to say something very, very quickly because we're still talking about Stone players and stuff of that nature. You mentioned a name, Grayson Holton. What he has done, right? Because I mean, Allen's articles about Jackson, freshman, starting that many snaps and being productive and being good, right? What Holton did is also rare. You don't go from being he's a 4-star dude. Obviously, he's got talent. He's got whatever potential. But going from basically, oh, this dude's written off to boom, he's here and now he's relied upon and he's delivering. As a rotational defensive tackle at that point in time. That usually doesn't happen that much. By the time you're done for your second year, you've made it or you haven't, right? And he made that jump in the third year. That's not something that happens as often as you would think. We have in our head that every single year every player gets better, when really it's kind of like a static thing in which there's a scale that probably moves a little bit to 5% to the left or 5% to the right at that point in time. You don't see superstar jumps in that way. From that way, him making himself from basically being a bench warmer to now rotational to potentially really, really late. Maybe he works his way into it, like a late draft pick is a massive jump that doesn't happen as much as we do. The reason why we think they do is because we talk about it so much. We don't talk about all the guys who wash out, nearly as often. So we're self-selecting the stories that we're listening to and things of that nature. Stone being kind of a ho-hum, that's not as rare as we want to think it is, because we want to believe 5-star player is going to have impact. Holton coming from where he was in year 2 to performing year 3, and now people have really big expectations for him in his senior year. That's kind of big time. And you're talking about PJ, same thing. He is written. He is done. Like if he performs, he's going to beat the odds at this point in time, which maybe he does, but he'll have beaten the odds at that point in time. Now he started football way late and all that type of stuff. That's part of it. But when it comes to an Oklahoma player, University of Oklahoma football player, he will have beaten the odds if he's able to produce at a high level at Oklahoma moving forward. So that's something you have to think about from that side of talent evaluation, how these guys are developing, and also just have a really realistic expectation of how much are you expecting players to develop, right? David Stone's not going to be a first-round draft pick at this point in time, unless something massively changes, unless he figures out how to sink his hips and anchor, which he just doesn't seem to have the body type to do it. Or does he get moved around a little bit? Can Oklahoma adopt more of a 4-man front? He can play on the edge a little bit more, something of that nature, and you can be a little bit bigger, right? Then maybe there's a spot for him to be more in the rotation. But there's just a way that these guys have to move that isn't necessarily, the light hasn't necessarily clicked on for him, because it's more of, in my personal opinion, he's more, in my mind, that pass rush type style of guy, right? Like that's what he is going to be. And honestly, Oklahoma could need a guy like that. It's 3rd and 12, roll him out there. Let's go get the quarterback. That's good to have. Right? Oklahoma, you don't want to be in a position where you don't have those players. So having him's good. And he's going to be under a microscope due to his own doing, or due to his family's doing, or his agent's doing, or whatever. But I don't think it's totally fair for us to say like, oh, he's going to have like an 8-sack season or something of that nature. I just don't think he's that type of player, at least not yet, especially against the schedule Oklahoma's going to be playing.
Would you guys agree that defensive line, especially interior defensive line, that's going to be the position where you should be the most patient as a fan if you sign a high-end player out of high school? Because, again, Jaden Jackson's very unique, very rare. But even then, like, nobody really expected much out of Jaden Jackson, especially his freshman year, until literally he walked onto campus and people started talking about him like, oh, my God. This guy looks like a legend.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always like physically, I think that position is the one where it's so hard for them to come in. And I mean, now you get a good year in, maybe you're ready to go, right? I mean, but I normally think it's going to take probably 2.
If that's the
Jay
case,
Jackson's just such a unicorn type thing, you know?
if that's the case, then college coaches need to get together, join hands, and say, we're not paying defensive linemen millions of dollars in NIL to come out of high school.
Yeah.
Because not in this era of they can just leave after one semester. That doesn't make any sense to me how we're going to pay. I'm just going to throw random numbers out there. They have no basis in reality. David Stone, we raised $2 million for you to sign with OU. Okay, I'm going to sign with OU. Then he goes off and plays 92 snaps his freshman year. David Stone, we are going to cut your NIL deal in half because the production was not there. Well, of course the production wasn't there because this is a position that requires time and time and time to develop. It seems stupid to throw a bunch of money that will have to be taken away a year later, which will undoubtedly lead to some emotions in either the player or the player's family or the player's representation. It just seems we are like college coaches are just creating their own problem that could be easily avoided if they all just say defensive linemen cost this much money, significantly less than what is being thrown at them now.
Yeah, but the problem is it's such an important position that you'd rather have them on your campus
and risk losing them
and risk losing them than have to worry about. I mean, at least if I'm a high resource team, if I'm a Texas and Ohio State, I would be. That's the kind of thing where I'd say, okay, well, I'm going to throw a lot of money at this kid, keep him in the program, and good luck prying him away. Down the line. That's how I would look at it.
Because it's cheaper to give them the first time than to try to pick them up on the second time. Right?
Well,
I mean,
that's
more than likely it's cheaper to pull them out if they've got any sort of potential to pull them out of recruiting than trying to fight off everyone's bids out of the portal at that point in time. If David Stone had, let's say David Stone was a day one starter, got 10 sacks last year, all that type of stuff, and walked into a portal, he's more than likely leaving Oklahoma. Somebody's going to give him $5 million or something. It's like, well, okay, congratulations. We'll have to figure this out on that side. That's right. Yeah. I will say the other position because you can hide defensive tackles to a certain degree, because you get a bunch of them and you can rotate through. Left tackle is probably the one position you're like, okay, we're going to have to wait a while because you're going to do everything backwards with your non-dominant hand. That's probably the one you need to wait on. But some of these other positions, which I would say you should wait on, you can't anymore, like quarterback or something. Like
I'm not sure you can wait on left tackle anymore, honestly.
That's true. Oklahoma's starting to, put in freshmen out there, which is kind of wild. But
you got the Gabe Eichert experience already proclaiming Fasusi to be the second coming. So we should expect greatness.
That's true.
Day one from an 18-year-old.
It's such a tough spot. Both tackle spots, obviously, but that left tackle is such a tough spot where, like a defensive tackle, you can get them out there and you can say, hey, I don't say, hey, just go out there and stop the run. But, you don't necessarily have to be explosive, right? Defensive end or something is like, you need to be out there. You need to be making moves to get to the quarterback, right? It's a little bit different. Defensive tackle, it's more like just hold your ground. If you can do that, you're at least being serviceable. That's what I was saying with David Stone, is that he couldn't hold his ground.
Yeah.
He's getting washed up too much. Now he's getting bigger. He's got he's got that more Ndamukong Suh style body type where he just looks really, really proportionate. Look at Jackson. Jackson looks like 90% of his weight's in his thighs. So it's just a different thing, right? It's a different thing where his body type, he's just going to have to become stronger, and that just takes time for that style of body.
Funny. I had the hardest time writing that thing about Jackson in terms of trying to describe him as productive because really his being productive is the fact that he was able to play almost 400 snaps as a freshman and not get pushed around. You know what I mean? Like that's what qualifies in that kind of role, Yeah.
And that's the stuff like when you look at NFL guys, which I guess now we've got that as a general manager for left tackles. They're not looking at like sacks allowed and so on and so forth. They're looking at like, look how he sinks in his hips. Look how he doesn't have to kick his left leg out as much. All that. You're looking at how their body can move, right? Can they anchor themselves and things of that nature? That's what like Oklahoma's doing. My assumption from what, whatever, whispers in the wind and everything. Or Nagy was looking at Stone being like, well, is he can he actually physically just do it? And it's he can do some certain things like that, but can he be a down to down defensive tackle for the University of Oklahoma? And does he have that ability to move in that way? That's what you're looking at when you start looking at this stuff from an evaluation standpoint. You're not looking at a wide receiver saying, well, he had 1,000 yards. It's like, yeah, but he got 500 targets, or whatever, right? You need to see, what does he look like through those breaks and all that type of stuff. It's much more of a body type and body movement is what it does seem Oklahoma is moving towards in the future, near future at least.
Man, that was a lot over one person, one topic.
Well, it's a big topic, and it also
it encompasses a lot of things, right? And I mean, a lot of issues in college football right now. That I mean, it's kind of a microcosm, really.
Yeah, I mean, are you guys at all worried? And I brought this up to you a few times now. I mean, Payton, it seems like your mind is somewhat almost made up on David Stone in terms of what his potential is at OU realistically. But are you guys at all concerned? I mean, DJ Hicks, Williams Nwaneri, David Stone. Brent went after all three of them heavily. He got one of them. They've all proven to be pretty jaggish or NIL merchants. Williams Nwaneri goes to Missouri. It's where he's from. He gets the money earlier because of that Missouri state law. And then he transfers to Nebraska immediately after the season, which tells me he's not serious about football. He's just chasing that bag, which more power to him. Does that at all concern you guys? Because we've already kind of mentioned one of the reasons why Brent and OU are in this cycle of having to bring in a lot of players in the portal is because they're not necessarily developing the guys that are highly touted coming out of high school within the program. And to me, it says a lot that if your biggest targets, the ones that you invest all the resources and time and effort into, you're not going to win all those battles, I understand. But what they do, to me, kind of speaks to where the eye for talent and evaluation is with this staff. And I mean, to me, it's not very good. It's not as good as it appeared a few years ago.
I'm not for sure. I mean, so much of this is a crapshoot. I mean, especially for this side of it. And I think the issue becomes Oklahoma doesn't sign as many 5-star players as a Georgia, as a Alabama, as a Texas, Ohio State does, is that when they have the very normal amount of attrition, it seems to be bigger Oklahoma when really, if you only sign 2 5-stars and one of them doesn't work, well, that's 50% of your 5-stars, at that side of it.
And the Texas reality is like if one of your 5-stars does hit, like that's actually probably the right amount. You know what I mean?
Yes. There's I'm going to go back to the 2022 class where Texas A&M gets 8 5-stars. And I think maybe 2 turned out, maybe, Evan Stewart, I guess. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe just 1, it just doesn't always work out that right. And, there's a YouTube guy I follow who I cannot remember his name. He did a breakdown of NFL draft. It's like if you draft number 5, you have a 20% chance he's going to be a star. A 30% chance he's going to be an average football player. If you draft number 31, you have a 2% chance he's going to be a star. I mean, it's just at that level, and these kids, they're kids still, they're 17, 18. You're really rolling the dice. And what you're trying to look at is you're looking at dimensions and the arm length, and you're looking at that and you're trying to project, and you're trying to figure out, will this kid put them out of the work in and all that type of stuff. It gets to be very difficult. Like look what Oklahoma has for cornerback. Got Eli Bowen, who, if you just look purely on body type, it's probably not the guy they want out there. But he's the one who has performed so far at this time to be day one starter, right? It's not something I would have expected. I thought he was the toss in into that whole deal, and potentially he is the guy who's going to produce at a level in which Oklahoma needs to at that position. So
yeah,
I'm not for sure. I know there was that list of all these 5-star players Oklahoma lost. They lost one of them to perversion. So it seems like just a bad run. But I think if you stack every team's 5-star players, it would be littered with people who never turned out.
Yeah, and the early 2010s were. Recruiting didn't seem as scientific as it seems now. Like it seems a little bit more, it translates, but of course it's not even near 50%.
Yeah, and like one of the things like on that list is like Caleb Williams, portal. Well, yeah, then he went and won the fucking Heisman Trophy and was the number one pick of the draft. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. Like,
yeah, I did find it funny that it I think the first 5-star that list mentioned from KREF's Twitter account was Stephen Good, and so as I'm going up the list, I'm realizing, oh, this is in sequential order. Oh, that's when Cruise Control Bob Stoops began. Maybe that's why the 5 stars bust here. Gents,
I did want to say, because I did want to bring this up. I was on Jay's Red Dirt Sports Discord. What if the 2 first ballot Hall of Fame coaches were the reason Brent was very good to begin with?
Yeah, that's.
What if Bob and Dabo were the real reasons Brent was the guy?
It's a very good question because the Bob in the Big 12 post Brent and Dabo in the ACC post Brent. I mean, the competition is comparable. It's not like one was in this super powerful conference and the other one wasn't. But I think you have to. I mean, Bob was definitely a much better coach, I think, just in terms of acumen and accomplishments than Dabo Sweeney, even though Dabo's got one more national title than him. I think Brent with Dabo proved to be a better combination than Brent with Cruise Control Bob Stoops, if that makes more sense. But Bob coached longer. It's a good question.
I think it's to me, it seems the same thing of Lincoln Riley. At this point in time, you had Bob, who potentially stopped Brent's worst impulses, which are, well, let's take a chance on this kid. Let's develop this kid. Maybe that's his impulse. And you had Dabo maybe doing the same thing of saying, no, we're stacking talent. And let's get it. And then you allow Brent to be the schematic guy, not necessarily the talent evaluator guy, potentially at that point in time. That I'm not for sure either way, but I think there is something kind of interesting there of these 2 guys, we colloquially kind of go like laugh at or something. They may have been the ones, obviously, because they're day one first ballot Hall of Famers who are probably kind of propping up that career to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, the jury is still technically out on Brent for me, but
I think the jury's come home. To be honest with you. I mean, for me.
Well, what if Ben Arbuckle's that guy? And then there's your combination.
Then you hire Ben Arbuckle to be head coach.
Exactly. Oh God, this is bad.
No, I mean it's from that side of it.
Do you guys want to mention your like real quick takes on OU getting Jade Knott? Because if the David Stone thing did not happen, that's what we would have led with was you guys weren't on last week. So how about Jade Knott?
It's good, man. I think this offense needs somebody who can make some plays.
It's got some juice.
Yeah. And like they just, I don't know if how much of that last year was just the issues at the quarterback position, how much of it was, the guys themselves. But, I look at it and think, okay, what's the best ways to kind of like maximize personnel they got? And, maybe you can do some 2-back stuff with Ott and Xavier Robinson or, even some Diamond.
DeMarco just said, stop, Allen. He just stop it. What are you, 2 backs?
Well, he was in there. He was in that full house.
That's right. He did the dive.
Yeah, because I'm DeMarco Murray. I can do that. No one else can.
So no, they need players like Ott. And I mean, there's a lot to like about him if you're getting the 2023 version,
Makes sense. Very excited. Payton? Stoked?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this offense needed juice. Just needed it right at that point in time. I mean, I think between Mateer and Ott, you're looking at a 1-2 punch, at least in the zone read game and QB run game stuff, that's going to cause defensive coordinators fits. And that itself will then open up the passing game for Oklahoma. I mean, this has a chance to be, and I'm going to be somewhat hyperbolic. This has a chance to be like, from the worst offense in the SEC to potentially the number 1 offense in the SEC very quickly. And the reason, and I'll keep beating this drum, isn't because anybody developed. It's because Oklahoma got different football players. And that seems to be pretty simple. Player acquisition is what the game is, and they acquired football players. That is I think, during minute 5 of this podcast, before we've gotten this David Stone stuff, is like you see where Oklahoma has gone since they got the GM. The GM's like, we're spending all the money on offense. Like there's it, because that is the thing in which it has an immediate impact. Get a good running back, get a good wide receiver, get a good quarterback. Okay, let's move forward. The issue becomes, will they be hamstrung by the offensive line? We don't know. I hope not.
They still need a good wide receiver.
They still need one. Yeah, the rumors and all that kind of stuff. You had a 1A, 1B, then 1A gets his leg broken.
It was fluky, Peyton. It's no one's fault.
Well, yeah. I mean, what are you going to do?
Every year,
they got to play football.
Every year, it's going to be fluky and not Brent's fault whatsoever. So, do not blame Mr. Brent Venables. The House case is still not dropped yet. That sucks. Please hurry. And then the Arkansas AD is going to enforce NIL buyouts because Nico Maliava's brother, Madden, signed with Arkansas, and now he's going to transfer to UCLA. So good luck with that. That would be great. I would like that. I want some guardrails. I'm tired of this crap. But good luck, Arkansas athletic director, whose name I do not know. Is he anybody of note?
Hunter Yurachek, I believe. He was at Houston.
So the answer is
no. It will be interesting if they could do it, and it will be interesting to see if a program would be willing to do it, because that would be something like we're over there saying like, oh, you got to keep David Stone because look what it does to your recruit. Now, if you sit there and say, if you transfer out, I'm going to come out there and take all your money back. Why in the world would anyone ever go there at that point in time, especially when you have the ability to portal? Right now, the players just make money. So then they have nobody saying you can't do this or you can't do that. So that will be an interesting test case if Arkansas will actually do that. I don't know how it would be beneficial in any way.
You know who wants that though? Badly probably? People who are donating the money to these guys. So yes, my 100%. Guess is like that's Hunter Yurachek's number one probably priority is those people and not the recruits who fly the coop,
Oh, well, we wish Arkansas luck, except for when they play OU in 3 years, I guess, or 2 years. I don't know.
Whenever they do it.
I can't remember numbers. In Arkansas, who cares? Anyway, there's your David Stone Saga Extraordinaire podcast for the week. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. And hopefully we jumped on every little bullet topic that you possibly can as you spiderweb through this topic. If we missed something, we apologize. But like I said, like the notes right in front of me are long and weaving. And so we tried our best. Matt Burton is potentially watching the Thunder give up a 20-point lead in the second half. Right now it's 80-70 Oklahoma City over the Grizzlies in game 2, a little bit after 8:00 on Tuesday night. So let's see if the Thunder can hold it out, take a 2-0 lead. Peyton, are the Spurs doing anything?
Who knows? No, they're not at all. Well, I mean, obviously, I guess there's another health scare for Pop, so pray for him. Obviously, we don't want anyone to do any more health stuff. But anyone who's running this coming weekend in Oklahoma City, good luck. It's a great thing to do. My wife is doing the half marathon. I am not running it because I don't really like big city marathons anymore. There's so many people. But obviously, for Memorial, big time thing to do. Pay your respects. And if you're trying to get somewhere, remember, I mean, just don't go somewhere that morning. Just go in there, support the runners.
Go somewhere else.
Cool thing. Yeah, go somewhere else. But I'll be out there kind of messing around, cheering the wife on, stuff like that. So if you guys are running, know anybody's running, cheer them on, take them out for donuts afterwards, and just experience it. It's a great thing to do.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, Peyton. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for listening to Through the Keyhole. If you've not done so, please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you've not done so, we will greatly appreciate that, and it helps the show out. Keyholepod.com for Alan's story that we referenced at the top of the show. Go check that out. Go form your own opinion. Get some better context as to how special Jaden Jackson is just from a production and playing standpoint. And then patreon.com/throughthekeyhole for my funny ramblings that I enjoy writing for you all. But for the absent Matt Burton and Peyton Guthrie, Alan Kenny, myself, Brady Trantham, everybody, thank you so much for listening Through the Keyhole. Until next time, boomer!
Sooner.
Don't enter the trans.